Welcome back, everyone. We're diving back into the humble self-concept method today.
Yeah.
And this time, we're all about step one,
Ooh, exciting.
assessment and disarmament.
It's going to be good.
And believe me,
I think.
this one is eye-opening. We're going to figure out just how ready all of you are for some radical self-compassion.
Radical. I like that. Think of it this way, like a personal inventory of your beliefs about self-worth.
Okay.
Kind of like
Like cleaning out the closet.
yeah, like Marie Kondoing your emotional package, right?
I love it.
We're going to use targeted questions
Okay.
to uncover where you stand on two critical scales.
Wow.
So we've got your validation mindset,
Okay.
which ranges from scarcity to abundance.
Got it.
And then your self-concept type, which is all about how much you rely on other people's opinions versus your own inner compass.
So basically, are you clinging to that validation life raft?
Yeah,
Or are you swimming freely in a sea of self-love?
love it.
We are about to find out.
I love this analogy.
To kick things off, we've got 3 pivotal questions for you, straight from the HSCM source material. Grab a pen and paper if you want to jot down your answers. And remember, honesty is key here.
Absolutely. No sugarcoating.
Yeah.
This is about getting real with yourself so you can embark on this journey with a clear understanding of your starting point.
Okay. Question number 1, ready? Here it is.
Hit me.
Do all people always have value worth acknowledging, even if they fail and can't see how they've failed? Just sit with that for a moment. Let it really sink in.
Take your time. There's no rush. Remember, we're talking about your core beliefs about people, yourself included. Do you believe everyone has inherent worth, even when they mess up?
Okay, on to question number 2. This one gets a little more nuanced.
Okay.
Do all people always deserve to feel good about themselves for attempting to be what they currently consider a good person, even if they're dealing with those tough self-correcting pains like guilt, shame, and embarrassment?
Ooh, this one can be tricky. It challenges us to consider whether we believe people deserve to feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
even when they're struggling, making mistakes, or feeling those uncomfortable emotions that come with personal growth.
All right, and finally, question number 3. Do all people always deserve compassion as far as defending oneself, society, and enforcing boundaries will allow?
Whoa, deep.
Think about what that means in practical terms.
It's about recognizing that compassion has its limits. Sometimes we need to protect ourselves and others, which might mean setting boundaries or taking action.
Right.
But within those necessary limits, do you believe everyone is worthy of compassion?
Now let's unpack your answers and see what they reveal about your relationship with self-compassion. We're going to dive into this concept of zero-sum validation scarcity, but don't worry, it's not as intimidating as it sounds.
Yeah.
Break it down for us.
I gotcha. Think of it like this. Zero sum means that for someone to win, someone else has to lose, right? Limited pie. Validation is about feeling worthy, valued, and good enough. So, zero-sum validation scarcity is the belief that there's only so much worthiness to go around, and if someone else gets a piece, you have less.
So it's like constantly comparing ourselves to others, always trying to prove we're better or more deserving.
Exactly. And this scarcity mindset can manifest in 2 ways: pride-centered and shame-centered.
Ooh, now things are getting really interesting. So what exactly does a pride-centered mindset look like in action?
So if you lean towards a pride-centered approach, your sense of self-worth is all about feeling superior to others.
Okay.
You might struggle to admit your own flaws because that would mean losing a piece of the validation pie, right?
Yeah.
And you might be quick to judge others because that reinforces your belief that you're better or more worthy.
It's like constantly needing to be on top, to have the most trophies or the loudest voice in the room, always needing to prove you're the best.
Exactly. And this need for superiority can lead to a lot of stress, anxiety, and even isolation, because genuine connection becomes difficult when you're always trying to one-up everyone else.
That makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so what about the flip side? What are some telltale signs of a shame-centered mindset?
Someone with a shame-centered mindset often sees themselves as inherently flawed or not good enough.
Okay.
They might be quicker to admit mistakes, not out of genuine accountability, but out of a deep-seated belief that they're always doing something wrong.
It's almost like they're preemptively apologizing for their existence, always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And their self-worth becomes extremely dependent on external validation.
Wow.
They crave approval from others to compensate for that inner feeling of inadequacy.
So both pride-centered and shame-centered mindsets are ultimately rooted in that fear of not being good enough, just expressed in different ways.
You've hit the nail on the head. Both are playing that zero-sum game, just with different strategies. Now let's go back to those 3 questions we asked you earlier.
Okay.
Did you answer no to any of them?
Interesting.
If you did, the way you reasoned your no can give you a clue about whether you lean more pride-centered or shame-centered.
That makes sense.
For example, if you answered no to the first question about everyone having inherent value, and your reasoning was that you aren't good enough or deserving enough, even when you try your best, that points toward a shame-centered mindset.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you answered no because you believe some people are just inherently bad or undeserving, that suggests a more pride-centered approach.
It's about who you're pointing the finger at.
Precisely. Take a moment to reflect on your answers and see if you can pinpoint which mindset resonates more with you.
Yeah.
And remember, this isn't about labeling yourself as good or bad. It's about self-awareness and understanding the starting point of your journey with the HSCM.
Love it.
Okay, so now that we've dipped our toes into the pride-centered versus shame-centered pool,
Yeah.
let's dive into some deeper waters, shall we?
Okay, let's do it.
The validation mindset.
Oh.
This is a powerful concept from the self-validation dynamics framework, and it's all about how you view the whole idea of validation,
Okay.
where it comes from, how much you need, and what it means to you.
So we're going beyond just comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
This is about our fundamental beliefs about validation itself.
Absolutely. There are 3 levels of validation mindset:
Okay.
scarcity, growth, and abundance.
Okay.
And each level has a massive impact on how you see yourself and navigate the world.
Okay, let's start with validation scarcity. Paint a picture for me. What does that look and feel like in everyday life?
All right, so imagine
Oh, there.
validation is like a rare, precious gem,
Okay.
and there's just not enough to go around.
I like that.
Right. That's the essence of validation scarcity. You're constantly chasing after external markers of worth, achievements, praise, likes, followers, because deep down you believe that your value is conditional, dependent on those things.
But wouldn't that be exhausting?
Oh, absolutely.
Always striving for external approval, never feeling truly content with who you are.
It absolutely is, and it's a recipe for anxiety and insecurity.
Right.
Because your self-worth is constantly fluctuating based on these external factors. One minute you're riding high on a compliment, the next you're crushed by a criticism. It's like building your house on a foundation of sand.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Unstable and vulnerable to every storm that comes your way.
Very unstable.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So where does validation growth fit into this picture? Is
Yeah.
it like a stepping stone towards something more stable and fulfilling?
Precisely. Validation growth is that beautiful in-between stage where you're starting to wake up to the importance of internal validation,
Okay.
but you're still influenced by those old scarcity beliefs, right?
Yeah.
You might have moments of recognizing your own inherent worth, but those old patterns of seeking external approval still creep in.
It's like you're learning to swim in that sea of self-love.
Yes.
But you still keep reaching for that validation life raft just out of habit.
A perfect analogy. It takes time and conscious effort to dismantle those deeply ingrained scarcity beliefs
Yeah.
and cultivate a more sustainable sense of self-worth.
Speaking of sustainable, let's talk about validation abundance, the holy grail of self-love. What does it mean to live with an abundance mindset when it comes to validation?
This is where things get truly liberating. Validation abundance is about recognizing that your worth is inherent,
Okay.
unshakable, and completely independent of anything external.
Okay.
You understand that validation isn't a limited resource, there's enough for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not about winning or losing, it's about recognizing that inherent worth in yourself and everyone else.
So with validation abundance, you're no longer playing that zero-sum game.
Exactly.
You're free from that constant need for external approval.
You got it.
Hmm.
People with a validation abundance mindset find their sense of worth from within, from those inviolable personal truths. Right. Those core values and beliefs that define who they are at their very essence. It's about aligning your actions with your values and living authentically, regardless of what others might think or say.
That sounds incredible. But if we're being honest, it also sounds a little magical.
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually cultivate this kind of unshakable self-worth?
Right.
It can't just appear overnight.
Probably not magic,
No.
but it does require a conscious shift in perspective
Okay.
and some dedicated inner work.
Yeah.
The first step is becoming aware of those deeply ingrained scarcity beliefs that we've often internalized
Okay.
from childhood experiences, societal messages, or even past relationships.
So it's about recognizing those limiting beliefs that tell us we're not good enough,
Hmm.
not worthy enough, or not deserving of love and belonging
Yeah,
unless we achieve certain things or meet certain expectations.
exactly. Once you've identified those beliefs, you can start to challenge their validity. Are they really true? Do they serve you? Or are they simply echoes from the past that are holding you back from experiencing your full potential?
It's like Marie Kondoing your belief system,
I love that.
holding each belief up and asking, does this spark joy?
Exactly. And if a belief doesn't spark joy,
Yeah.
if it doesn't support your growth and well-being, it might be time to thank it for its service and let it go.
This brings us to a really crucial point.
Okay.
We talked earlier about how the HSCM can be more challenging for people with pride-centered self-concepts.
Hmm.
Why is that?
Well, remember, a pride-centered mindset is all about feeling superior to others, right?
Yeah.
It's a way of protecting yourself from vulnerability and the fear of not being good enough by building yourself up and putting others down.
Okay.
The HSCM challenges this entire structure.
So it's like asking someone to dismantle their carefully constructed ego castle brick by brick.
Exactly. And that can feel very threatening,
Yeah.
especially at first.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The HSCM offers something far more stable and fulfilling in its place. It's about building a new foundation for your self-worth,
Okay.
one that's based on self-compassion, acceptance, and the recognition of your inherent worth, regardless of how you compare to others.
So it's about trading in that rickety, unstable ego castle
Yeah.
for a solid, spacious, self-love mansion.
Yes, I love that.
A place where you can truly relax, be yourself, and connect with others from a place of authenticity and vulnerability.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of the HSCM. It's not about becoming perfect or achieving some unattainable ideal. It's about embracing your imperfections, learning from your mistakes, and treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would offer to a loved one.
That makes so much sense.
Right.
Now let's bring this back to you, our listener. Where do you think you fall on this spectrum of validation mindset?
Mm.
Are you clinging to that scarcity life raft, paddling towards growth, or swimming freely in the ocean of abundance?
Take a moment to reflect on how you typically respond to challenges, setbacks, and even successes. Where do you look for validation? What makes you feel worthy? Your answers will reveal a lot about your current validation mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, wherever you are on this journey is perfectly okay.
Right.
The HSCM is all about meeting you where you are and guiding you towards a more compassionate and fulfilling way of being.
And that brings us to another fascinating element of the self-validation dynamics framework.
Ooh, yes.
The connection between your validation mindset and your self-concept type.
Okay.
Interesting.
You see, those pride-centered and shame-centered mindsets we discussed earlier are actually just two expressions of a deeper pattern, a way of constructing your self-concept based on external validation.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So how does the self-concept type framework build on that understanding?
Well, it breaks down self-concept into three distinct types:
Okay.
other, belief-dependent, evolving, and self-reliantly independent,
Okay.
each reflecting a different level of reliance on external validation.
Let's start with other belief dependent. What does that look like in practice?
So if you have an other belief-dependent self-concept, your sense of worth is constantly at the mercy of other people's opinions.
Okay.
You're looking for external validation to prop up your sense of self. And as a result, you're incredibly vulnerable to criticism and rejection.
It's like building your house on someone else's land. You never truly feel secure and in control.
Exactly. It's an exhausting and often painful way to live because you never truly feel settled in who you are.
Right.
Your sense of self is constantly shifting with the tides of external opinions.
Okay. What about the evolving self-concept type? Is that like the validation growth mindset?
Yes.
Where you're starting to move towards a more internally grounded sense of self?
You're right on track. An evolving self-concept is all about that beautiful journey of self-discovery. You're beginning to question those old, externally driven beliefs about yourself. And you're starting to build a sense of self-worth that's more rooted in your own values and experiences.
So you're starting to realize that your worth isn't determined by what others think, but by who you are at your core.
Precisely. It's a process. And you might still be influenced by external opinions,
Yeah.
but you're actively working towards a more independent and stable self-concept. You're learning to trust your own inner compass and to define your own worth.
And finally, we have the self-reliantly independent self-concept type. This sounds like the ultimate goal, a place of true inner freedom.
It's definitely the ideal we're striving for.
Yeah.
A self-reliantly independent self-concept is characterized by an unshakable sense of self-worth that's completely independent of external opinions. You know your worth, you trust your values, and you live in alignment with them regardless of what others might think.
It's like having this inner fortress of self-belief
Yeah.
that can't be breached by any external negativity.
Yeah.
You're grounded, centered, and secure in who you are no matter what life throws your way.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And it's what allows you to navigate life's challenges with resilience and grace.
Hmm.
You're no longer swayed by criticism or praise because your sense of self is firmly rooted in your own internal compass.
So how do we actually make that leap from an other belief-dependent or evolving self-concept to that place of self-reliant independence? Is it even possible for everyone?
It absolutely is, and that's where the HSCM comes in.
Okay.
The entire method is designed to help us dismantle those old, externally driven beliefs about ourselves
Yeah.
and replace them with a self-concept that's grounded in inherent worth, self-compassion, and a deep understanding of our own values.
Yeah.
It's about rewiring our brains to recognize our own inherent worthiness regardless of external circumstances or the opinions of others.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
let's connect the dots for you one more time. We've explored two key frameworks: validation mindset and self-concept type.
Right.
Your validation mindset is all about how you view validation. Is it scarce? Are you growing towards abundance? Or have you already embraced it?
And your self-concept type is about the foundation of your self-worth.
Okay.
Is it dependent on others' beliefs? Are you evolving towards independence? Or have you achieved that unshakable inner knowing?
Take a moment to reflect on where you fall on each of these scales. Your answers will give you valuable insights into your current relationship with self-compassion and point the way towards a more fulfilling and resilient way of being. I'm curious about those no answers we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If you found yourself saying no to any of those assessment questions,
Right.
it's worth exploring why those beliefs are there in the first place.
Yeah.
What's going on in our minds that leads us to those conclusions about ourselves and others?
It's a fascinating question, and it really gets to the heart of how our self-concepts are formed. You see, it's this complex interplay of nature and nurture. On the one hand, our brains are wired for survival,
Right.
and that often means comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
It's a primal instinct that helped our ancestors assess their safety and status within a group.
Yeah.
Are we the top dog, or are we at risk of being left behind?
So it's like this ancient hardwired program
Yeah.
running in the background,
Yeah.
constantly scanning for threats and opportunities in our social environment.
Exactly. And while this instinct can be helpful in certain situations,
Right.
it can also lead to some unhelpful patterns of thinking, especially when it comes to our self-worth.
Okay.
This is where the nurture part comes in.
Yeah.
Our early childhood experiences, particularly with our caregivers,
Yeah.
play a huge role in shaping our beliefs about ourselves.
So if we grew up in an environment where love and approval felt conditional, like we had to earn it through achievements, obedience, or by being good,
Right.
that could set the stage for those zero-sum validation scarcity beliefs.
Precisely. Those early experiences create the blueprint for how we view ourselves and our worthiness of love and belonging. If we were constantly being compared to siblings, peers, or even idealized versions of ourselves, we might internalize the message that there's only so much love, attention, or success to go around.
Right.
We learn to see validation as a limited resource, something we have to compete for.
So in a way, those no answers aren't really our fault. It's more like we've inherited a set of beliefs that might not actually serve us.
That's a very compassionate way to put it, and that's where the beauty of the HSCM comes in.
Okay.
It gives us the tools to challenge those inherited beliefs,
Yeah.
to examine them with a critical eye, and to choose a different path, a path of self-acceptance, self-compassion, and genuine connection.
Earlier, we mentioned that the HSCM might be more challenging for people with pride-centered self-concepts.
Yeah.
I'd love to explore that a little further.
Yeah, let's do it.
What makes this journey particularly tricky for folks who lean towards that pride-centered approach?
Well, remember, a pride-centered mindset is all about feeling superior to others. It's a way of protecting yourself from vulnerability by building yourself up and putting others down. The HSCM challenges this entire structure. It asks you to dismantle that ego castle brick by brick
Wow.
and to rebuild your self-worth on a foundation of humility and self-compassion.
So it's not just about adding more self-love to the mix.
Right.
It's about fundamentally shifting the ground on which our self-worth is built.
Exactly.
Sounds like a pretty radical transformation.
It is. And for someone with a pride-centered mindset, it can feel incredibly threatening at first.
Right.
It's like asking them to give up their primary coping mechanism, the thing they've relied on to feel safe and worthy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
I can see how that would be challenging. But what's the payoff?
Ooh.
What happens when we're willing to let go of that need to be superior?
The payoff is immense. When you're no longer dependent on feeling superior to others, you're free to connect with them on a deeper, more authentic level.
Hmm, that's beautiful.
You're free to celebrate their successes without feeling threatened.
Yeah.
And you're free to offer genuine compassion both to yourself and to others.
So it's like trading in a competitive, isolating mindset
Yeah.
for one that's based on connection, collaboration, and genuine joy. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together and that everyone deserves love and belonging regardless of their achievements or perceived flaws.
Exactly. And that's the true power of the HSCM. It's not just about feeling better about yourself, it's about transforming your entire relationship with the world.
Wow.
It's about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace and interconnectedness that allows you to show up with more authenticity, kindness, and compassion, both for yourself and for those around you.
Well, on that inspiring note, it's time to wrap up this deep dive into HSCM Step 1. We've covered a lot of ground, from those essential assessment questions to unpacking those sometimes tricky concepts like zero-sum validation scarcity,
Yeah.
validation mindset, and self-concept type.
It's a lot, I know.
Remember, this first step is all about self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Take the time to honestly reflect on your answers, your beliefs, and where you might fall on those different scales. The more you understand your starting point, the more equipped you'll be to embark on this incredible journey of radical self-compassion.
And speaking of the journey, remember to join us next time as we dive into HSCM Step 2, Target Humble Self-Concept. We'll explore the powerful statement that will become your anchor in the storm of self-doubt. But until then, we'll leave you with this thought-provoking question.
Okay, hit us with it.
If you could completely unshackle your self-worth from the opinions of others, what would that feel like? How would your life be different? Let that question marinate in your mind as you move through your day. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye, everyone.